So my name is Ebtisam Jouini. I work as Senior Evaluation Manager for IAES, the Independent Advisory and Evaluation Service for IAES. And with me today, we have Ahmadou Abdullahi. He's a Senior Consultant, Senior Evaluation Consultant. He worked with us, with our office, conducting the benchmarking review, and he will present the results. Also, we have Marta Molinari. She's an evaluation analyst working with IAES, and she will also contribute with presenting the review results and recommendations. So thank you again, and I will now present the objective of this session, remind the objective of these sessions as suggested in the proposal for the G-Local. So through this session, we would like to present the results of a benchmarking study that we conducted last year. And the study is already published, and Ahmadou will present the results, and we will share the link. So this benchmarking study describes how other organizations have reviewed their management response systems, and also how MUPAN assessed their management response systems. So you will hear about that. Then we will also present the methodology, the key findings, recommendations of the review of CGIAR management response system. So I'm sure many of you are either evaluators or evaluation manager or involved in evaluation, and you might have also reviewed the management response system or tracking system of your organizations, or maybe you are planning to review the system or the tracking system of recommendations. So we'll try to give the key learning from our experience, and hopefully you can share your experience. So all this work is under the framework of the current. It's an old debate, but it's still up to date about evaluation news. We are all evaluators and managers and frustrated about the low use of our evaluations, and it's across organizations. So here, through this webinar, and also we know that there are many other events about the same subject, we would like to show the importance of strengthening management response systems to foster the use of evaluations, and therefore foster the accountability, learning, and strategic decision-making. So these are the objectives of the session, and we will start by giving context and background, because this will help you understand the results that Marta will present afterwards. So for those of you who don't know CGIAR is a global research partnership. It's a consortium composed by 12 research centers, and the CGIAR works the field of food security, agriculture, transforming food, land, and water system in climate crisis. So it's composed by the research centers, the funders of CGIAR. They sit in the System Council, which is also a governance body of CGIAR, to which we provide advice on strategic points. And here you can recognize names of big centers that are known, and maybe you collaborated with, maybe without knowing that they belong to the CGIAR system, like ICARDA, ILRI, IFPRI, SIP, CIMIT, etc. So this is CGIAR briefly. Next, please. So CGIAR, it's a partnership of centers, but also there is a system. So these centers operate also operate in their fields, topics, etc., but also operate together as a system called CGIAR system. And there is a strategy, a 2030 strategy of CGIAR, and here there are key features of this strategy. the most important to know about CGIAR, it's a research for development organizations. They provide science they provide rigorous theory-based research and supposed to help the development and food security and agriculture systems, and to impact 5 impact topics, which are the nutrition, health, poverty reduction, gender, climate adaptation, environmental health, and biodiversity. So I will not talk more about CGIAR, maybe put things in their context where we operate, because we will you will see that we also, through this review, evaluated also how we do evaluations as evaluation function. So where we operate as evaluation function, it's also somehow unique and different maybe from UN agencies, where there is an office of usually big offices of evaluations. Our evaluation office, it's relatively small if we compare to big agencies. And we work a lot with consultants. We operate under the umbrella of IAES, which is the Independent Advisory and Evaluation Service. And with IAES, there are also 2 other bodies who provide independent advice. So for example, ISDC, the Independent Science for Development Council, they review the proposals of new programs, new portfolio, before these programs are endorsed and confirmed, validated by the System Council, and then implemented. SPIA, the Standing Panel on Impact Assessment, they do impact assessments, and they use impact evidence and methods, and they also do country reach studies. Which basically exploring the extent to which CGIAR innovations are adopted at the country level. And then our evaluation function, we do primarily process and performance evaluations, and we also develop guidelines and method notes, and we developed also the evaluation policy and framework. So this is briefly about our evaluation unit function. Here, the concept of management engagement and response, we started years ago about developing and exploring the way to make our evaluations useful. So there are guidelines, management engagement and response guidelines that are online, but we are currently updating. But here it's important to explain the difference between management engagement and management response. So when we talk about management engagement, we talk about participations of stakeholders at the design, conduct, use, and learn from the evaluation. Also, the nature and timing of management engagement will vary, of course, depending on the willingness of the evaluant to be actively participating to an evaluation, or just helping, supporting, providing information, and then receiving the results. So it will depend by evaluation. The management response is a formal response to evaluation recommendations. So when the evaluation is finished, and then we transmit the recommendations, the management of CGIAR is formally required to provide response to our recommendations. So management response establishes concrete and time-bound commitments from management to implement each evaluation recommendation. So it's systematic. Next, please. So here, briefly, so the management engagement sometimes starts early with an evaluability assessment. So sometimes when a program is starting, we perform evaluability assessments. So it's a first engagement with key stakeholders, which will make the evaluation afterwards, the mid-level evaluation or the final evaluation of a program or a portfolio, easier. So for example, now we are conducting 13 evaluability assessments of the 13 programs and accelerators starting this year as part of the new portfolio. So this is just to say that evaluability assessments are important to start engagement from the start, and also to help programs to get prepared for evaluations and having collecting the right data from the start. Thank you. If you would like to learn more about management engagement and response, we have a resource hub where we put there all the documents, resources, guidelines related to the management engagement and response. So thank you. So why also we started this review quickly? I'm sure maybe some of you know MOPAN, which is the Multilateral Performance Network. It's composed by country states, and they are checking, assessing the performance of organizations. So as UN agencies, development banks, etc. And they give scores. They have a very structured checklist where they assess different aspects of an organization's performance. So they also check the use of evidence at the planning and programming side. So CGIAR was assessed in 2019, and unfortunately, CGIAR scored highly unsatisfactory to the KPI 8, which is the organization applies evidence-based planning and programming, pointing to the following several weaknesses. So it's accountability and follow-up and uptake of lessons and best practices. So conducting this review, one of the objectives is to address these weaknesses related to the use of evidence and improve the management response system, and then improve the use of evidence from evaluations. Next, please. So this is, again, it's the rationale and objective of the review. So it's accountability and learning, assessing the effectiveness and efficiency of the system, facilitating the implementation of evaluation recommendations, and supporting the evidence-based planning in CGIAR. So the scope of the review covers the CGIAR, all the actions that the management said will implement as a response to the recommendations from our evaluations released from 2021 and 2024. Here, this figure illustrates the system, the management response system, from the different phases of an evaluation, from the inception, who is involved, then the evaluation, data collection, internal quality assurance, and then the management response. When we deliver an evaluation with its recommendations, the management either partially accept, or not accept recommendations. When they say they accept or partially accept recommendations, then they need to identify actions that they will save and track their implementations through time. Then there is a reporting leading to show how, what we call in CGIAR Type 3 report. They put a summary of the number of implemented, not implemented actions. The recommendations refinement workshop, Marta will talk about it when she presents the results. So this is something that we used not to do before this review, but we learned that it's a good practice, and we started implementing it as a way to engage with stakeholders in recommendations refinement. This is, I think, the last slide about the background, and it's to show that this is the management system that we reviewed. So it's not only about the digital tracking system of recommendations. We know through the benchmarking study that sometimes other organizations, they review only the tracking system, not the whole system. So in this review, we decided to review all the system from inputs, which means our recommendations, our management response template, and also how we engage with stakeholders from the start. Then we, of course, we covered the process, the tracking, digital tracking system, and the outcomes of the tracking. So it was also a self-evaluation exercise for us. And with this, I will hand over to Ahmadou for the benchmarking study. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibtisam. Hello, everyone. So, as mentioned by Ibtisam, I'll be sharing the findings of a benchmarking study conducted by CGIAR mainly to inform the CGIAR management response system, following, as also mentioned, the critical finding of the 2019 MOPAN assessment. Basically, this review aimed to support the development of a system that ensures that evaluation findings leads to concrete actions, improve organizational learning, and strengthen accountability. We hear again the learning and accountability dimensions, as well as the informing decision making. So the purpose of the benchmarking study was to basically identify good practices, review methodology, and common challenges in management response system across peer organization. The ultimate goal was to inform the design of a more effective management response system within CGIAR. In terms of context, as mentioned, this was a response to a MOPAN assessment mentioned earlier, and it was conducted in parallel. The benchmarking study was conducted in parallel with the development of the TORs for the management response system review. So the idea was that it will inform the review that CGIAR planned to launch. Next. In terms of the methodology, basically a purposeful qualitative benchmarking approach was applied. Data source included the document review covering evaluation policies of different peer organizations, the MOPAN assessments of these organizations, and management response reviews of the organization. We also conducted semi-structured interviews with staff from CGIAR, but also with some comparator organization staff, including the African Development Bank and UNITAR. We also gathered insight from a UNEG webinar organized last year, which focused on the role of management responses in supporting the evaluation use. Next. So in terms of selection of comparator organization, these organizations were selected based on mainly 4 criteria. First, the existence of formal and active management response system. We wanted to make sure that because of its learning nature, we wanted to make sure that the organizations have an established management response system in place. Second, we also wanted organizations that have undergone recent MOPAN assessments, which basically would allow us to gather relevant information, especially since the MOPAN assessment methodology has been revised recently. So we wanted up-to-date data, basically. We also looked at diversity in institutional size, mandate, and sector, in making sure to include UN agencies, but also development bank and research bodies. And finally, we wanted to make sure that to ensure the availability of relevant documentation, as well as the willingness of staff from these organizations, their willingness and availability to engage in interviews. So the final sample included both organizations that conducted standalone management response reviews. They were actually the only one that we found with who conducted standalone reviews. They included the GEF, UNDP, and UNITAR, and those whose management response systems were reviewed as a part of a broader MOPAN assessment. MOPAN assessments are organizational level assessments, and they look at various dimensions of the organization performance, including criteria on the management response. So in these MOPAN assessments, management response is just one of many criteria that are being looked at. These organizations include African Development Bank, IFAD, ILO, among others. Next. Now, on the findings of this benchmarking study, so the standalone reviews reveal, as mentioned, there were 3 organizations that have conducted standalone review of their management response system. They highlighted several effective practices. Basically, these organizations used structured action plans to operationalize the recommendations. Once the recommendations have been formulated, including the evaluation report, the preparation of the management response started with a structured action plan to implement these recommendations. Also, they had established clear accountability mechanism with assigned responsibilities and timeline. This was also keen in the reviews that we have looked at, basically to make sure that each recommendation has what you would call an owner, someone responsible for implementing it, and with also a specific timeline to make sure that the responsibility is not basically lost between different departments, let's say, within an organization, and also the importance of having timeline to basically be able to follow up correctly. And then there was an independent validation of progress. This was practiced by Jeff, for instance, and UNDP, which provides credibility and transparency. For what does that mean? Is that when the management reports on a progress, there was a validation step that the evaluation offices, for instance, in UNDP and Jeff would do, is to check, was this progress actually achieved or not? So this is an extra validation step that they have put in place. And in the case of UNITAR, there was an emphasis on co-creation, basically, involving multiple stakeholders in the management response development with the objective to build ownership and feasibility, to make sure that by co-building these management response, the owners of the recommendation feel responsible, and also it's an opportunity to validate these recommendation and make sure that they are feasible within the internal context. Basically, the key implication for CGIAR from the study included the need to embed the participatory planning in the management response processes. I think it was mentioned earlier by Ibtisam, the validation of the workshop or the fine-tuning workshop, which basically involves both the evaluation function and the client of the evaluation, the evaluant, and also to develop a robust tracking and validation system to basically be able to track the implementation of the recommendation. Next. Now, what do the MOPAN assessments reveal about the management response? Basically, the MOPAN reviews that I mentioned earlier of organizations such as FDB, IFAD, and ILO showed that well-performing management response system share several features. Again, there is a structured action plan with clear responsibility. This was also highlighted in the standalone reviews. The regular reporting mechanism integrated in the governance structure, also highlighted in the standalone reviews, and the use of digital platform for tracking implementation. This is basically to have a system backed by a software or a database, an information technology database, which would allow and facilitate the tracking of the recommendation implementation. For example, FDB had what it called MARS system, which enables structured reporting to the board. IFAD had a system called Prisma, which actually allow for public disclosure. And ILO had a system called EMRTS, which provided decentralized dashboard for monitoring the management response implementation. Next. That being said, there were some common challenges that were basically noted across many institutions that were covered by this study, which include the limited resources for management response implementation. This is particularly true at the decentralized level when the central evaluation office often don't have, let's say, I mean, these decentralized evaluation usually are managed at the decentralized level and do not have the evaluation function don't have a supervisory role over them. So and often they have limited resources for implementing the management response. There was also the fragmented and underdeveloped tracking tools, which hindered follow-up and learning. Not all organizations had this tracking system, which allowed for a quick and efficient follow-up. The other challenge was a weak integration of management response output into strategic decision-making cycle. This sometimes is due to the difference in time when the planning of the evaluation did not take into account strategic planning within the organization. So the finding wouldn't be integrated and would not necessarily inform important or key decision-making processes within the organization. Finally, there was, and this is very, this is an internal issue that was also highlighted and often is highlighted by the evaluant, the clients of the evaluation, is the quality of the recommendations themselves. The recommendations that are included in the evaluation report sometimes are vague and do not specify who would be responsible for implementing them, and that itself does hinder the quality of the management responses. So recommendation emerging from this study include allocating dedicated resources and building management response related capacities, establishing centralized digital platforms with real-time tracking capability, which is also a bit related to the resource point, and of course fostering a culture of accountability and learning anchored by senior leadership. These were some of the recommendations that the study has come up. Thank you. Next, now we can open the floor for a discussion, and to guide the discussion, first, for those of you who have been involved in a management response review or are involved in the preparation and follow-up of management responses in your daily activity, we would like to hear from you about the challenges and opportunities that you are facing. Also, if you've been involved in a review, what are your thoughts about the formalities of conducting these reviews? Should they be internal or external? And should they be done by the evaluation office or by the management? And what do you think of management response as a whole? Do they balance learning and accountability? Are they useful, or do you consider them as a checking the box kind of step that are more of a time-consuming activities? Thank you, and we can open the floor for a few minutes if you have any questions, and then we'll go to the second part of the presentation. Thank you.
So those who would like to intervene, you can raise your hands and we can give you the floor to talk. Or you can leave your question in the chat. I'm happy to hear, to see that among participants, we have many CGIAR colleagues from centers, which is good, since we're talking also about CGIAR and the management response system.
I see no hands.
So
Maybe
we can maybe
we can
continue.
continue if you want, and then we will have the opportunity to discuss at the end of the presentation.
Okay,
Over
that's
to you, Marta, I think. Or,
yeah. So please don't
sorry.
be shy. We will continue, but please, we would like to hear from you, also from your experiences about the topic or related topic. It doesn't need to be exactly on management responses, even on evaluation use, because by the end of the day, what matters is the use of evaluations, learning, lessons, etc. Here, I will continue with presenting. We conducted an online survey last year, and this online survey was targeting evaluation managers working with different organizations, either UN agencies or international development banks or government agencies working on specialized in evaluations. And through this independent, not independent, but through this online survey, we wanted to map practices around evaluation management. And the aim was also to try to link evaluation management practices with evaluation use. We will release the report soon about all the findings of the online survey. And here we selected only the results, a few results related to management response, which is of importance today. Next, please. So here is a collection of events that we either participated in or we facilitated when we started the journey of working on evaluation use, management responses, evaluation management practices, etc. So we launched a discussion in Eval Forward. I'm sure you know Eval Forward. Otherwise, my colleagues can put the link here. It's a platform where evaluators and managers can talk about evaluations in the context of agriculture and food security. It's a very rich community of practice where we launched the discussion about evaluation management. And also you can find another discussion about managing stakeholder conflicts when developing evaluation recommendations, which is also important. Also, I would like to advertise and thank our colleagues working with UNEG working group on use of evaluation, the use of evaluation working group within UNEG. Last year they organized also a webinar about from recommendations to action, and it was really useful for us to develop the terms of reference to design our review. We also used the IAES, European Evaluation Society Conference last year. We organized a workshop where we also tried to hear from participants about the topic of use of recommendations, etc. So all these events helped us shape the review that you will hear about the results. Next, please. So here, this is the profile of the respondents of the survey, 79 across different organizations. The participants, respondents to the survey are mainly managers, evaluation managers, or officers working with UN agencies or government entities working on evaluation, and also international research organizations and NGOs, etc. We were lucky to have a good balance, gender balance. So we can say it's representative. We have a representative group respondents. In the next slides, we will see the four highlighted practices that we found. So, for example, when we asked if the organizations, the respondents work with, if they have a system for tracking status of implementing management responses, 64% they say they have on the tracking system, which is good in my point of view. When they were asked about is management response developed for all evaluations, 74% said yes. And when we asked about how long does the development of management response usually takes, So the majority said that it takes between 2 weeks and 2 months, which is also holds true for CGIAR system. So the other question is about if the management response tracking system is publicly available, is it to all who would like to access it? The majority, 73% said no. So it's usually a tracking system is within the management or the organization, it's not publicly available. In the case of CGIAR, the tracking system is publicly available, but few people knew about its existence. So yes, it's good. It's good for transparency to have this tracking system available for everyone, but also some promotion is needed to make it useful and people can use it and check the implementation of results. Okay, so now I will give the floor to Marta. Marta will present the methodology used for this review, selection of results and recommendations. And then we will, you will know the full story today. We will also, we have already the management response to our review of the management response system. We'll also tell you what happened with our recommendations. Over to you, Marta.
Thanks. So good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Marta Molinari, as Ibisem introduced me, as I'm a research analyst for IAES CGIAR since almost 2 years now. And I was part of this whole exercise. I started also by helping Ahmadou in his benchmarking study. So I was part of also of the findings of the benchmarking studies that informed, as my colleague said, this unique exercise that we have been doing since September 2024 until December 2024. You can move on to the next slide. I will present in these next few slides the methods that we use for this review. This unique exercise, as was said before, was informed from the benchmarking study and from the online survey that Ibisem just exposed to you. We also went through, of course, a document review because of the MOPAN assessment that has been done in 2019, and on 33 recommendations from 7 evaluations that were present in the management response tracking tool of CGIAR. As Ibisem said, the review was about the whole system of the management response, not only from the tracker, but we had the chance also of having in our team an expert in digital and data that conducted a case study and had the chance also of reviewing the MR action tracker. So next slide, I will introduce the team. So I was the evaluation analyst for this review. We had then a team leader, Silke Hofer, that collaborated with a lot of MOPAN assessments, so had a big background about MOPAN. And our subject matter expert, that was a data scientist, Didier Liebovici, that was the one that conducted the case study and did a more in-depth review of the management response tracker. Next, please. We will then pass to the main findings that the review found out. I will go through the findings because they are summaries of 11 findings that the review in the end produced. One of the first findings was that the time frame for developing, approving, and communicating the management response to governance bodies is deemed sufficient. Moving parts within the organization, such as leadership changes and restructuring, complicated the application of the template and implementation of recommendation. So CGIAR is a big organization that, as Ibisem tried to explain in this in the background of this presentation, has 12 centers underneath it. So, of course, this brings to a lot of changes in the years and in the structure also of the management. And this, of course, brought limitations also to our review. Another big finding was that the management response template promotes specificity. Some management response actions remain vague due to the lack of harmonization in phrasing the recommendation in the evaluation reports, the high volume of recommendations, and the uncertainty about future operational context. This subsequently hinders the traceability of actions and recommendations. So as said before, and as I saw also in some of the comments in the chat box, as we know, it's really difficult sometimes to try to not give a lot of recommendations at the end of our evaluations or reviews. And this has been one of the main goals that this review wanted to achieve. And as you will see, we tried our best and we arrived to 3 main recommendations that I will then explain and read to all of you. Next slide, please. Availability of data regarding implementation status of recommendations and management response action is not sufficiently elaborated to assess if specific needs from key stakeholders are met. So what we found out is that not only in the management response action tracker, so the digital tool, but also digging around in our desk reviews, we understood that most of the times it's really difficult for the management to track the use of our recommendations. And of course, this brings then to a less possible use of the recommendation that are developed from reviews or evaluations. Another big finding was that the management response tracker provides the basis of reporting the current stage of implementation progress, but on a very basic level, with lack of accuracies, and faces challenges in operational adaptability and ensuring continuity in a dynamic environment. So as said before, the tracker is really basic at this very moment. We know that, and we are collaborating to bring the tracker, more details to the tracker. But as for December 2024, so the end of our review, the tracker still was not bringing the details that are needed to understand if the recommendations are then really used and inform the system. Last big finding is that reporting on management responses to independent evaluation is limited to reporting on its implementation status only. The absence of feedback loop and insufficiently elaborated dataset led to limited evidence on how implementation of recommendations inform decision-making or the designs of new programs. So again, the absence of feedback do not give the level of details that can give us also the evaluation function the possibility of understanding how and in which manner the management will then use the produced recommendations. Next, please. So as said before, part of the review was also a case study elaborated from our data specialist, expert. He had the chance of developing a case study based on recommendation that he produced in a study that was done on big data of agriculture 4 years ago in CGIAR. So he had the chance also of digging into the recommendation that he produced in his own and see where they moved during these years. The big 2 findings that he found in the tracker, so the digital tool, was the insufficient IT engineering documentation for the design and development solution, including key aspects such as needs and requirements, data modeling, and software solution. The MR action tracker include useful summary statistics on management responses, but as said before, lacks of details. So lack of fit-for-purpose targeted analysis regarding digital integration within a well-structured knowledge management system for the CGIAR digital landscape. As also introduced by Ibis and Ahmadou, the unique of this exercise was also because of the evaluants. Our evaluation office was part of the evaluant of this big review, and as such, we tried to transform the way we were doing evaluation. Meanwhile, the review was going along. We introduced for the first time the use of a recommendation refinement meeting with representatives of the key stakeholders of the review and the Executive Management Office. This meeting took place on the 17th of December in our office HQ in Montpellier. And as said, the participants were all the key stakeholders involved and representatives of the Executive Management Office. The purpose was to introduce a new participatory step at the end of the evaluation process to ensure recommendations are relevant, feasible, and jointly owned. This because, as said from both the colleagues before, we've discovered that it's a really useful exercise, also as the benchmarking study revealed. And of course, what we tried to do was to pilot it in the review that was ending in December. The format of the meeting was to divide it in two presentations. The first one, we had our team leader that presented the findings and the 3 draft recommendations with some proposed actions. 2 big achievements also that the review had were to produce, as said before, a really limited number of recommendations, only 3, that have also some suggested actions and some responsibility to these actions to help the management response development. So the second part of the meeting was to try to involve all the participants in understanding the recommendation and trying to think of the feasibility of those. We had some reflection and lessons learned about this first trial that we did. These can bring to increased engagement and clarity on recommendation and future actions, and gives valuable insight for improving future session, because we understood about the participants and who is the best representative to involve in this kind of meetings, given then, of course, the structure of our organization. The key outcomes of this meeting have been the recommendations were revised to be actionable, time-bound, and clearly assigned. And there was then a final draft of the report that was shared with all key stakeholders, along with all the meeting minutes for the final review. And now I will read for you the 3 final recommendations that came out after our meeting. Our team leader also during the review thought that it was interesting to explain how to read these recommendations and measures. So our team tried the best that to arrive to each recommendation that address different levels of engagement, with more detailed suggestion for possible non-binding and non-exhaustive measures for action plan to be considered when developing the management response. Given the lack of details that we were finding in the management response of the 7 evaluations that were within the scope of this review, we understood, or we thought that giving out these measures, ideas of measures that can be undertaken, could give the opportunity to the evaluand to give a more precise management response. So practical and realistic measure with implementation feasible within the next 12 months. Responsibility for implementing the measure were identified by the review team and IAES to ensure a smoother management response process. So, of course, stakeholders should prioritize a more strategic and collaborative approach to current activities towards enhancing the current technical modalities for tracking the actions, improving prioritization and feasibility of recommendation, and enhancing a culture of learning. Because one of the biggest findings, of course, that we arrived to see at the end of this review is that the culture of learning within the organization it's really important to see our recommendation then taken into consideration. Next slide, please. So here is the first recommendation, and as you see underneath, we have also the measures and the responsible office of the measure, that in this case, particular case of this unique review, was our evaluation office as part of the evaluant. The evaluation function at IAES should adjust the management of independent evaluations, including the development of report annually of recommendations and timelines for management response, to fit changing context and to be able to report annually on the uptake of recommendation, to support evidence-based planning, programming, and decision-making across CGIAR. IAES, in its advisory capacity, should provide clear guidance on which stakeholders should be involved in the development of the management response and its implementation. The suggested measure in this case are the stronger focus on participatory approach for finalizing recommendations, provide guidance for writing recommendation to consistency across evaluation reports, an annual review qualitative feedbacks of the recommendation status, and to support recommendations uptake. So advise on which stakeholders should participate to the management response development and guide the evaluand in the management response. Next, please. Here we have recommendation number 2, and the measure are mainly for the CGIAR management. CGIAR should revisit the positioning of responsible parties tracking the implementation of recommendation to independent evaluation and its management response actions. Under its new structure, CGIAR should consider this function as a joint responsibility of the Chief Scientist's Office, specifically the PPU and PCU. Oversee the tracking of management response tracker at the portfolio level that will be given to our performance unit, and manage tracking at the program level. CGIAR should continue to refine its technical modalities to enhance the effective tracker of management response action, followed by a revision of its guidance management response system documents. Of course, we are going in depth in which is CGIAR management roles and responsibilities. That may not interest all of you, but the measures that were given were suggestions in a certain sense of how they could think out a best solution to improve in the different responsibilities that the management in its whole need to have when an evaluation is finished. So the measures here are to revisit the positioning of responsible parties, review the tracking tool, assessing needs, build an integrated tracking system, to produce a guidance note for the management response template, implementing the quality assurance process based on solid documentation, and review the management response process and update guiding documents. So we can pass to the other last recommendation. Here you can see, and we left it like this to give an example, is one of the we had, of course, different reviews of the recommendation itself, but this was one proposed during our refinement meeting and as then adjusted by our team leader. So CGIAR should enhance an organizational culture of learning where evidence-based planning and programming is applied by streamlining process and reducing fragmentation across centers to leverage insights from CGIAR independent evaluation and lesson learned and best practice deriving from other evidence-based exercise within CGIAR. So as said by Ibisem in the background of this whole presentation, CGIAR, it's a unique organization composed by centers. And of course, this unique composition brings limitation then to the use of our evaluations that are not center specific for the moment. And in this manner, the review team asked the help of the management to try to leverage the use of all these recommendations. The measures in this case that were suggested were to improve in the share of lesson learned across MELCOP of CGIAR and across centers to be implemented by stakeholders. For the planned MELIA framework, that is a framework that will be established by CGIAR, collaborate with MEL personnel to help monitor the recommendation and actions implementation at the center level, conduct annual stock-taking exercise between IAES and internal audit, and use events and platforms such as CGIAR's annual Science Week to share results with lesson learned. With this said, I will pass now again the word to Ibisem that will go through the management response that we had.
Thank you, Marta. Now you must say that with this extensive engagement with stakeholders, all our 3 recommendations are accepted, right? Because we engaged from the start. We had many, the key stakeholders, they reviewed the report, they gave their opinion, and also we had that hybrid workshop where they had also the chance to discuss the recommendations. And also this new way that we started with this review, which is instead of giving main recommendations and sub-recommendations, the main recommendations was supposed, before when we do evaluations, are supposed to give the direction where the system or the program should go. And then sub-recommendations, they are supposed to give concrete actions on how to do it, the how of getting to that direction. So instead of doing that, because sub-recommendations, they also require formal management response. Instead of doing that and overburden the system with many recommendations and sub-recommendations, we just gave 3 recommendations and a menu of measures that Marta listed for each recommendations. And we asked them to choose whatever they think it's realistic, feasible, and they have the resources to do it. So with the assumption that this way, they will accept all the 3 recommendations. But it was not the case. So there are 3 recommendations. The first recommendations was addressed to us as evaluation function. And of course, we accepted it. We committed to organize workshops to improve our recommendations. We also committed to not exceed 10 recommendations per evaluation in our next evaluations. And we also deliberately engaged with stakeholders extensively. Among the other actions. Next, please. So, unfortunately, the 2 other recommendations addressed to management were only partially accepted, which is, well, we want to see the part full of the cup. So, basically, they commit to do the actions, the measures that we suggested, that the review suggested. But they said they partially accept the 2 because so the second recommendation where we suggest who should do what in the management for better efficiency of data collection and actions. They said that the CGIAR now is, for those who work for CGIAR or know CGIAR, it went through a deep reform last year, and with the new portfolio, there is also new structure, including of the management. So they said that our organizational structure is evolving, and we cannot commit to give responsibilities as stated in recommendation number 2. For recommendation number 3, it's as Marta explained, and also it's also linked to the unique structure of CGIAR, which is not one organization with the headquarters. And the decision-making line is not hierarchical. So centers, they are legally independent centers, offices, and they have the power. They can say, no, we don't give the data, or we don't implement the recommendations, actions, etc. So that's why they said, okay, we can commit, but not 100%. So this is the management response review, which is also, we publish all the management responses for evaluations, which is also good for transparency. And I think with that, we close the presentation, and we open for the discussion and maybe answering the questions. I know there are questions on the chat. I can start answering the first two. I can read. Marcus asked, how can we maintain our organizational culture of learning acquired through evaluation with staff turnover? This is the key problem as well. Okay, I'll respond to Lian. Good to see you. Yeah, you talked about the political will, and as you see from the management response, it's also very political to implement recommendations, to prioritize recommendations. So you can do everything perfectly right, engage extensively, and sometimes even the evaluant agrees with the recommendations, and but also sometimes they're saved in the tracker that they will do 1 and 2 and 3, but then it's not done. It's also depends on the leadership, political, etc. Diego, you asked about the capabilities an evaluation office should have to close the feedback loop. This is a very important question, and we have prepared a list of takeaways, and they cover that. But I can already answer by saying that if this needs to be done by the evaluation function or office, staffing is important, having someone who is dedicated to that, a staff who will be collecting data, collecting evidence about implementation of recommendations, and also preparing a report about the extent to which recommendations are implemented is important. So staffing is important. A strong and robust digital system, so we cannot still working with Excel and different having the information data in different places. Having a strong digital system, end-to-end system coming from recommendations, from evaluations, and then the follow-up where stakeholders can directly put the evidence of the implementation of recommendations, and then you can do many analyses to check which topics there are evolution progress in which topics and why, what are the bottlenecks, etc. So a strong digital system is important, and adaptability and prioritization. So a strong digital system, a strong system is important, but we live in an era where there are many changes, turnover of staff, and people go. So having the system is important, but also giving space to adapt when you have hundreds of recommendations from past evaluations, and then there is the system reforms itself, and you have a new structure, new responsibilities, sometimes new priorities in the mission of an organization. Then maybe you have to pause and reflect with the people who needs to be involved, which recommendations should be prioritized among the 100 recommendations made by past evaluations. And there are other things that maybe we will leave at the end with the takeaways. So would you like to read? I have hard time. I have a small laptop. Cannot read well. So Edwin.
Maybe we can also ask to open up the camera, and so that people can actually make the comment.
Yes, please don't be shy. Open the camera and speak.
Yeah, there was a comment from also Lian. It's about he has. I don't know if Lian you wants to intervene. He doesn't have a very positive she. you don't have a very positive experience. For yourself, it's not so useful. People responded, but there was no concrete content. Has to combine with strong political will, as Ibtisen has just mentioned. The tool itself is not enough. Yeah, I don't know if Edwin, then you want to open up your camera and microphone and share your experience. Edwin.
So we know Edwin. He worked with us. He's an evaluation analyst. I'm sure he has many to share, but no pressure, Edwin. I know that
Yeah.
sometimes you
I
have
can
an
read
internet
his
problem.
comment.
Yeah.
Thank you for the thoughtful presentation. The approach to integrating the management response into the evaluation process reflects a strong commitment to learning and accountability. Positioning the response between the validation of findings and finalization of the report is a commendable practice that supports ownership, dialogue, and practical follow-through. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Also, maybe I can read you this question from Diego Paredes. So, and Ibisem, you could take it maybe from the evaluation office.
I think I answered about the capabilities of an evaluation office, right? Is
Yes.
it? Oh yeah, I answered about what an evaluation office should have.
So then we have a question from
Yes,
Marcos.
you did answer. Yeah, she answered.
How can we maintain an organizational culture of learning acquired through evaluation with all the stuff turnover we answered? I'm sorry, because the chat is
small.
Yes, it's small and difficult to read all.
No, I think we covered all the questions, but feel free, Ahmadu, to add, or Martha, if you have any other insights.
No, I think you covered them well. So let's see if we have any other questions. Anyone else wants to take a? No.
So I mean, I can understand that it's usually difficult for webinars, online interactions, people to engage actively, but so we prepared a list of takeaways, case studies. Yes, the MELCOPs. This is our dream to revive the MELCOPs of CGIAR. Actually, one of the recommendations of this review is to revive the MELCOP, as you saw. So I think it's on the table in CGIAR. I think it's something that is looking forward to. And from evaluation function side, we are really keen in helping, supporting on whatever way to revive and help the MELCOP, because it's a community that is very close to our work. We do evaluations, but without the monitoring and evaluation system, good system across the CGIAR, our evaluations are struggling a lot because we don't have a good monitoring and evaluation system. So, and also we know that through interviews, when we meet male professionals across CGIAR, we know also that male professionals in their research centers, they are somehow isolated and somehow not valued, their work not valued among researchers. So if you're not a scientist or a breeder in CGIAR in one of the centers, and you are doing monitoring and evaluations, sometimes it's people and colleagues, they don't understand what you are doing or the value of what you are doing. So we from the evaluation function, we agree that we need to revive that network. So people work together and share their experiences, their tools, and their challenges, and also, as you see, if we don't follow on actions, recommendations, and we are sure at the center level there are good studies, good evaluations that we are not using because we are not aware they exist. So I cannot more agree with you, Diego. Okay, so this is a list of takeaways. I feel that we talked about many of them. I can go through them quickly, not maybe reading everything, but just for you to go with these takeaways and reflect, and maybe you can share your feedback after this webinar. You can reach out to us, and we can continue talking about this topic. So there is no doubt, and other reviews at the benchmarking study shows the MR system, they are critical for evaluation use. If evaluation recommendations are not tracked, the actions are not tracked, then there is no organizational change based on evidence, evaluative evidence. Maybe there will be an organizational change, but based on other things than evaluative evidence. MR systems should serve not only accountability, but also learning. And as you said, I think, Diego, to close the feedback loop, learning is also as important as accountability. Because when we think about management responses system, we first think about accountability, but learning is also important. Key stakeholders and governance body, they must be actively involved from the start. It should be deliberate and encouraged to participate. So this will help them own the recommendations and also be aware about what is not working in the system. Formal structures and tools strengthen MR processes. So it's important to have guidelines, process notes, or whatever that's written somewhere and shared with everyone. What is the management response system and who is doing what and who is responsibility of whom. So this is important, especially when there is transition and staff turnover. So it happens to us when we want to know what happened with one recommendations in a program, and then we don't find anymore the evaluant lead. Then there is no information about what happened with the recommendation. So this is a problem. Having a strong system where everything is saved, so when the person leaves the organizations, the information is there. It's important. Fragmentation and lack of integration remain challenges, especially in CGIAR, where we operate through different centers, and it's a partnership. So a unified mail system is very important. But again, the experience showed that there needs to be incentives for centers, independent centers, to share their data. They cannot treat data, and sometimes they're understaffed, and you cannot ask them to send all the data, clean data, while they don't have the resources or they don't see changes, for example, as a result of them sharing the data. Next slide, please. Also for us evaluation function, also for centers delivering evaluations and recommendations should be improved. And because it's understandable that when you need to cover many evaluation questions in one evaluation, you need to give recommendations maybe for each evaluation questions, and you end up with 20 recommendations, which is not possible. So an exercise to prioritize with the stakeholders is very important, and also to improve the quality of recommendations, as Ahmed said. This prioritization exercise, we know that it's sometimes very political, so it should be done in participatory way. So not one person deciding which to prioritize and which not to prioritize, because it can differ from one stakeholder to another. Strengthening technical and organizational capacity. So to enhance the tracking of recommendation, the digital tools, the capacity of the staff, to recognize evidence of an implementation of activity, actions or not. Because as Marta presented, there are lack of evidence, and in the tracking system, sometimes an action the status of an action is completed or ongoing, but there is no evidence in the tracking system of that. Or there is evidence, but it has nothing to do with that action. So the person who is feeling that system needs also to understand what is the action about, what is the recommendation about, and what is a credible evidence on that on the completion achievement of that action. The fostering a culture of evidence and use, also embedding MR systems in a culture of learning, also require deliberate efforts for accessible formats, participatory methods, and leadership support, and it's also political will. The thing that we found through the benchmarking study, our review experiences as evaluators or managers, and also it was presented in one of the UNEG, or the Use Working Group, one of their webinars. There is no correlation between high quality and rigorous evaluations with use. So sometimes in evaluation offices, or they said, okay, if we do very rigorous evaluations, good quality, then they will be used. It's not true. So that needs to be a deliberate effort from the start to foster the uptake, participatory process, etc. So quality of evaluation, it's important, of course, but it's not enough. So the engagement with stakeholders from the start is equally important as the quality of an evaluation. I think this was the last message, let's say. And if there is no more question, case studies. Okay, sorry, please. Diego, you asked about case studies. I think this is the MELCOP. The case studies as part of the review, or you mean as part of this review? If you can clarify, please.
Okay.
So part of the review, right?
Yes, so what I can answer you, Diego, is that I just sent out some of the links that you can find in the chat box, because the review has been published. It's available in our website. And the case study has not been published as a standalone case study, but of course, it's part of the findings of the digital and data part, and especially, as I tried to explain, the subject matter expert that collaborated with the team went also in doing an expert in-depth analysis of the management response action tracker that you can find in part of the findings and they published the review. It's not a big publication, so it's I think it's really nice also to have it in a more comprehensive way. So the case study is not standalone, but it's part of all the findings and of recommendations, of course.
Yes, Diego, please. Go ahead. You are muted now. Yeah.
Hey guys. I cannot activate my camera, but I would try to be quick here. So I was thank you for your presentation. I was very impressed of the level of details that you gave us. I think I will commend this to the Alliance officers. At least in the Alliance, we are divided in regions. I cover the Americas side, and we have delegates from Africa and Asia. So this is really interesting to cover up. And the main reason why I ask for case studies is because we also are trying to enter to this evaluation stage, which is really important. But in the way we do is, we have this sphere of control where we capture the outputs, We identify the innovations. We create the outcome impact case reports, which is more like a summary, executive summary of these innovations, scaling and impacts throughout their scaling channel. And then we don't stay there. We do an independent evaluation inside the alliance, so we can get which resources were used, how this was deployed, what the beneficiaries actually are, and to complete the cycle. And we get back to the new developments of this innovation. So the idea is, I also wanted to share this because in our side, the idea is centralized by the innovations itself. And then we follow up depending on the new developments. Sometimes they have more funding, sometimes they don't. So this changes over time, no? But this process is not yet documented because the first evaluation will come at the end of the year. But I will be very happy to commend this to the group and perhaps sharing these insights with you and the group, which I think it's pretty useful, no? For us to keep on the loop.
Thank you, Diego. Very interesting. Thank you for talking. So basically, our evaluation function is hosted by the Alliance here in Rome. So we know the Alliance. We know many colleagues working in the Alliance. And please, let's catch up after this webinar. We can have a meeting and talk about your evaluations and our evaluations. Maybe you are already aware but apart from evaluations, we also try as evaluation function to help by developing guidelines. We have an evaluation policy, framework, and also other types of guidelines that are tailored and help to CGIAR or research centers' missions and activities. So you have the availability assessment guidelines and also the quality of research for development applied for process and performance evaluations. So we are happy to continue talking about this, to engage, and we can help you and you can help us. As I said, as it's very important, and if this MELCOP community of practice is coming to life, this is really, really a good space where we can all learn together. So thank you again, Diego, and happy to continue talking after the webinar. So I see we are 2 minutes before the time. I don't think we don't have more questions. Thank you very much. Thank you again for staying till the end, asking questions. And for us, it was really a good opportunity to share all the learning through these benchmarking studies and then the review. And we continue the journey to foster the evaluation use. I would like also to thank Marta and Ahmadu, Frederica, all the colleagues who helped us organize, Marilyn, to organize this webinar as part of the GLocal. Thank you very much and have a good
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great day. Bye-bye.